The War of 1812, November 1814, the war thus far. Now, November is typically the start of general winter in both Canada and the northern United States, so you might think that the big action in the War of 1812 will take place down south, in some place like Florida. And you'd be right, sort of. Perhaps the most important thing that happened in November 1814 is that the Americans blow up Fort Erie on November 5th. November the 5th. Please to remember the 5th of November. The Americans blow up Fort Erie on November 5th and leave Canada to return to the United States, ending the last American invasion of Canada. For now. But they're still fighting in Upper Canada, i.e. present-day Ontario, so I guess it's not that cold yet. Been rainy, though. American Brigadier General Duncan MacArthur had been on a rampage through the western part of Upper Canada, the area I call Westhouse, southwest Ontario, with a force of 720 Ohio and Kentucky volunteers, plus Rangers, plus Native allies. He plans to head for either Burlington Heights or Fort Erie, but learns of a roadblock at the Grand River Ferry at Brant's Ford, i.e. Brantford. Said roadblock was 100 men, regulars, militia, and native warriors, all under Major Adam Muir of my old regiment, the 41st Foot. Muir destroys the ferry, then stations his men on a bluff on the far side of the river. On November the 6th, the two sides skirmish. MacArthur, in the words of historian D.R. Westhouse, thinks it imprudent to attempt to ford the river, which is swollen from recent rains. Learning that Fort Erie had been abandoned, MacArthur leaves a small force to keep Muir honest and sets out with the bulk of his men to confront Lieutenant Colonel Henry Bostwick. I always have trouble with that name. Bostwick and his militiamen at Malcolm's Mill later that same day. At Malcolm's Mill, near present-day Oakland, Ontario. I know, where's that? Well, Google it, I did. Actually, it's in Brant County, south of Brantford. At Malcolm's Mill, Lieutenant Colonel Bostwick commanded a force of 400 militia, made up of men from the 1st Oxford, 1st and 2nd Norfolk, and 1st Middlesex. Knowing he was outnumbered by the Americans, who were on horseback, he had his men dig in along the side of a creek after destroying the bridge across it. It was a good defensive position, but the Americans were able to cross the creek downstream, outflanking the militia and quickly driving them from the field. According to Wikipedia, the militia lost 18 dead, 9 wounded, with 126 taken prisoner, while MacArthur lost 1 dead and 6 hurt. In the aftermath of this engagement, which Westhouse says is the last battle of the war fought in Upper Canada, MacArthur headed for home, i.e. Detroit, as he had nowhere else to go, certainly not Fort Erie, but he made sure to wreck a lot of stuff on his way out. In addition to the final departure of the Yanks from Canada, the other major event of November 1814 is the occupation of Pensacola in Spanish Florida, where the British had set up a base of operation. The Americans were concerned that the British were arming Creek warriors who had fled to the territory in the aftermath of the Creek War, and they believed the Spanish governor had done nothing to stop it. Following the end of the Creek War, Major General Andrew Jackson had set up headquarters at Mobile in present-day Alabama. On November the 6th, he arrived at Pensacola with 4,000 men, including General John Coffee, after the Spanish governor Gonzalez Manrique refused to surrender the town. Jackson determined to storm it the next day. As Jackson's men were camped to the west of the town, both the Spanish and the British, whose fleet was at anchor in Pensacola harbor, expected an attack to come from that quarter. On the 7th, a small force attacked from the west as a diversion, while the bulk of Jackson's men encircled the town and stormed it from the east, forcing the governor to capitulate after a short fight. By midnight of the 7th, the Americans controlled both the town and all its fortifications, with the exception of Fort Barrancas, also known as Fort San Carlo de Barrancas, which remained in British hands. According to Westhouse, Barrancas was the strongest of the fortifications and, quote, controlled any movement in the area, end of quote. Jackson planned to attack the fort next day, but in the early hours of November the 8th, Barrancas was blown up by the British, who departed, sailing off to set up a base on the Apalachicola River. The Apalachicola River. Try saying that one fast 6 times. Apalachicola, 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 Apalachicola. It's tough. With the fort gone, Jackson returned the town to the Spanish and left. The Battle of Pensacola was the only battle in the War of 1812 fought in Spanish territory. The Butcher's Bill, Wikipedia lists the casualties as American, 7 killed, 11 wounded. Spanish, 14 killed, 6 wounded. The British claimed to have had no casualties. Well, with Pensacola gone and Mobile too well defended, the British would choose another target. New Orleans. Oops. The primary source for today's video was D.R. Westhouse's unpublished The War of 1812, a chronology of the military actions 1812 to 1815. But as always, all errors are strictly my own. If this is your first visit to 1812 channel, my name is Warren and I'm your host. I'm not a historian, nor am I an expert on the War of 1812. Instead, I'm a student wishing to learn about the conflict. Each month for the roughly 3 years of the war, I will outline the major events, and, if I can get my butt in gear, I will also review a book on the war. Did I miss anything? Any errors? Then let me know in the comments below. When the barrage lifts, cheers. Pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pix here, that's PX here, while the music was Crusade by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod. I chose it because I have an earworm for it. And I've been having a lot of problems with my voice today. So I just decided to bull this one through, and I hope it sounds okay. Thanks for listening.